Welcome to the Plato Paradigm, a paradigm shift in reading Plato's dialogues. Episode 107, Meno 82e to 83d. Meno has just agreed with Socrates that the slave is wrong to think that the square with double the area is formed on the baseline which is double the original baseline. Even so, Meno doesn't seem to have any problem at all with the demonstration itself. He's quite happy to continue watching it. Socrates obliges, but first he tells Meno, Theode auton anamimneskomenon effexes, hoste anamimnesgestai. Now watch him recollecting straight afterwards, as it is necessary to recollect. Socrates uses some ambiguous words, and it is possible to translate that sentence in a few different ways. For example, watch him recollecting in a series. It doesn't really matter what we think that Socrates says about recollecting, because we know that this slave will not demonstrate recollection. He's telling Meno to do something about watching the slave recollecting, but it isn't clear what, and probably Socrates is deliberately vague. The point is that Meno should be looking at what's happening and realize that the slave isn't recollecting anything. Now Socrates turns back to the slave. We have to remember at the moment we have our 4 square, and I have located that in the bottom left-hand corner of a bigger square, which Socrates hasn't yet begun to draw. Su demoi lege, apotes diplasias grames festo diplasion chorion gignestai, toionde lego, me taute men macron te de brachu, ala ison pantache estos vertuti, diplasion de tutu octopun. But you tell me, you claim that the double area comes about from the double line, but I mean one like this. He means the area of a square. Not here long and there short, but let everywhere be equal like this one, and double this, an 8 square area. In other words, double the 4 square. Al hora etisoi apotes diplasias toke esestai. Emoige. But see if it still seems to you that it will be from the double line. It does seem to me. The slave has evidently not paid attention to the nature of a square, that if you double the baseline, you double every other line. Socrates has told the slave that they still need a square, but he hasn't drawn the square. Uc diplasia haute tautes gignetai, an heteran tosauten prosthomen enthende, panuge. So this line becomes double this line if we add another line the same length there. Absolutely. It's interesting that the slave now sounds like Meno. He's quite happy with the way things are going. Socrates has now just extended the baseline another 2 units to the right, so that the baseline now is double the original. It was 2 units and now it is 4 units. The slave did not look into his soul at knowledge the soul has acquired in previous lifetimes. This is simply Socrates illustrating the answer the slave gave. It's the slave who decided that the baseline should be double, and Socrates is drawing that double line. Apotautes defes, estaito octopun chorion, an tetores tosautai genontai? Nai. So from this line you claim will be the 8 square area if these many make 4. Yes, it still seems logical to the slave that the double area will be built on the double baseline. And now Socrates innocently adds a few more lines. Anagrapsomethode ap autes issas teteras. So let's draw from this line 4 equal lines. Once again, Socrates is only illustrating what the slave himself has said, that the area has to be a square. And this is the square you get. If you double the baseline, you have to double each of the other lines of the square. We now have a large square with the 4 square square in the bottom left-hand corner. Socrates now asks an interesting question. Aloti e tuti ane hophesto octopun enai? Panuge. Is this, in other words, the big square, anything other than what you claim to be the 8 square square? Absolutely. Socrates has put together all of the conflicting opinions the slave has. The area they now want is double the previous area, therefore it is 8, and the slave has built the square on the double baseline, thinking that the double baseline will give us double the area in the square. Socrates has drawn the actual square you get from doubling the baseline, and yet he hasn't shown the slave that this is not double the area. He asked the slave himself if this is the double area he's talking about, and the slave somehow hasn't seen that this is not double the area, but quadruple the area. Uk un en auto estin tauti tetera, hon hekaston ison tuto estinto tetrapodi? Nay, aren't there in it these 4, each of which is equal to this 4 square square? Yes, I've read the first word as uk un and not uk un as it is printed in editions, because it seems to me that Socrates is asking a negative question. Aren't they? Not, therefore, are there? By the question, he's drawing the attention of the slave to the fact that there are 4 squares like the original 4 square square. In other words, all of those 4 together would make 16, but the slave still doesn't realize that. Poson un gignetai u tetrakis tosuton? Postu. So how much does that make? Isn't it 4 times as much? How not? Diplasion un estinto tetrakis tosuton? My dia. So is the double area 4 times as much? No, by Zeus. Alla posaplasion. Tetraplasion. But how many-fold? 4-fold. If Plato was trying to prove his theory of recollection, he could at least have made the slave conclude, at least by his own efforts, that this area is not the one that they are looking for. Even that wouldn't prove the theory of recollection, but it is better than having Socrates give the conclusion. Apotes diplasias aropai u diplasion alla tetraplasion gignetai chorion, aleitheleges. Therefore, from the double baseline, O child, comes about not the double, but the quadruple area. You say true things. This conclusion is sandwiched between questions. So it might seem to Meno that this is simply a small clarification during the questioning. It isn't helped by the next statement, to which Socrates appends a question. Tetaron gar tetrakis estin hekai deca. Uchi? Nai. For 4 times 4 is 16, isn't it? Yes. Socrates may not have been confident that the slave would be able to calculate 4 times 4, and by giving the slave the answer, this is yet another way to spoon-feed Meno with the ability to criticize the demonstration. This is not a demonstration in recollection. The soul is not the source of this knowledge. Socrates is the source of this knowledge. He has been teaching the slave in the last few moves. Socrates has misled the slave once. Will he now show him the correct answer? It seems that he's given up trying to prove that this is a demonstration of recollection. Octopunt apo poias grammes, uchi apo mentautes tetraplasion? Femi, but the 8 square area, from which line? From this line, isn't it the 4-fold area? I claim tetrapunde apotes hemiseas tautesitu ti. Nay, but this 4 square area is from this half line. Yes, the extended baseline of 4 units gives us an area of 16, but half of the baseline, the 2-unit line, gives us an area of 4. The first time, Socrates misled the slave by talking about the double, and now he's misleading the slave by talking about double and half, while pointing to the baseline that we've used 2 and 4. Eien, tode octopun u tude mendiplasion estin, tutude hemisu? Nay. Well then, isn't the 8 square area twice this one, but half this one? Uc apomen medzonos estai e tosautes grammes, apo elatonos de e tosesti, eu? Emoigedoke huto. Won't the 8 square area be from a line greater than a line of this length and from a line shorter than a line of this length, or not? It seems to me thus the baseline on which to build the square of an area of 8 is between 2 units and 4 units. So it does look as though Socrates is steering the slave towards the wrong answer, 3. And we should ask yet again, how does this demonstrate recollection?